A true and faithful relation will pass for many years between Dr. John D. and some spirits. We are on to, we're still in Tuesday, July 2nd, in the AM, hour 2. Madimi said, "The fire that kindleth all these, ere we're in thy life, is one, forming them according to whatsoever the substance whereupon they are grounded, so by the less ye may prove the greater, that as in particular, so likewise generally, all emanations are from one in the first workmanship lieth secret in one unknown, and it sealeth, and therefore it hath an end, and the sun through the circles and massy body, the heart in the body, the intelligence in the inward man, the sun from his own center spreadeth out the beams of his limited virtue, the heart, life to two, and yet the center of life is the whole body. Understanding quickeneth the mind, that mind I speak of, putteth on a fiery shape. It followeth therefore that everything what substance soever hath a center, from the which their circumfluent beams of his proper power do proceed. When these are perfectly known, then are things seen in their true kind. I speak this to prove that the good angel of man, which is the external center of the soul, doth carry with him the internal character of that thing whereof he seeketh to be a dignifier, within the which he doth lie secret, the conjunction and separation of the proportion of their times betwixt the soul and the body of man. O happy, therefore, is that soul which beholdeth the glory of his dignification, and is partaker with him that is his keeper. This known unto men, the thickness of the earth doth not hinder their speeches, neither can the darkness of the lowest air obscure or make dark the sharpness of their eyes. This character, at its next coming hither, shall be made manifest unto him." And so there's some, just like in some of the other sayings, there's some capitals, but yeah, you don't really. So does D see these dignifier and conjunction and center and soul and circles and mass and heart? Are they and one? Are they seen as symbols? Because the next time he speaks, dolphins and moon are, in the middle of sentences, but they're capitalized. Edward Kelly said, "He showeth a bloody hand, holding a bloody cross, with letters on it, like our holy letters." D said, "I beseech you, how shall his provision of money from home serve his turn, or how shall he here have help for his charges bearing?" Madimi said, "Your words make me a child. Those that fish for dolphins do not stand upon the ground." Yeah, I guess it's probably better to fish for tuna. "Those that sit in council call not in the harvest people, nor account, not their works. He that standeth above the moon seeth greater things than the earth. Is it not said, the Lord will provide? I stand above the moon, for that I dispose his life from above the disposition of the moon. To ask what Jacob his servants did was a folly, because their master was blessed. A greater question to ask how blessed he was than to ask how many sheep he had. He said, I am desirous to know what you mean by saying that my words made you a child. Madimi said, because you ask me childish questions, his good angel shall reveal his characters unto him, and thou shalt see it, pointing to Edward Kelly. But take heed, thou say truly, and use great reverence, or else the feet that love thee shall carry the carcass out of the doors. If he carry it upon him, it shall be a token of the covenant between him and God. And we see in the margin, reverence to the good angels, factum divinum, perhaps enameled. Okay. D said, the image or similitude thereof, mean you made in pure gold? Madimi said, I. So those that shall see his standards with that sign in them shall perish utterly. D said, you mean if the same be painted or otherwise wrought in his banners and pennons, and so on. Madimi said, let him use it as a covenant between God and him. He said, how shall he frame it in gold, solid-wise, or lamine-wise? You mean lamend, sigillium and whatever the, seals and whatnot via lines rather than. Madimi said, his own angel shall reveal it. Kind of supporting the Thelemic own personal holy guardian angel that you can learn to commune with sort of doctrine. Well, I mean, Aleister Crowley was a couple centuries on, but he said, because it hath been said that in the beginning of our country troubles we should be packing hence into his country, what token shall we have of that time approaching, are at hand? Madimi said, your watchword is told you before, when it is said unto you, the night, and so on. D said, but I beseech you to be ready against the watchword, hearing what is to be done, as concerning our wives and children, into his country. Madimi said, miraculous is thy care, O God, upon those that are thy chosen, and wonderful are the ways that thou hast prepared for them. Thou shalt take them from the fields and harbor them at home. Thou art merciful unto thy faithful, and hard to thy heavy-hearted. Much like what it says in Surah 49, how we're supposed to be. Thou shalt cover their legs with boots, and brambles shall not prick them. Their hands shall be covered with the skins of beasts, that they may break their way through the hedges. Thy bell shall go before them as a watch and sure direction. The moon shall be clear, that they may go on boldly. Peace be amongst you. Edward Kelly said, he is now gone away in a fire. Attorno deo nostro sit laus. Nor eo gloria in seculorum sacula. Amen. Thursday, July 4th, hour 11 of the AM, 1583. Note D. When I came home yesterday from the court, and from London, and from the Lord Lasky, I found that Edward Kelly was proposed to ride forth of town, and intended to be away, as he explicitly told me, 5 days, certain companions and his acquaintance having so appointed with him, some tarrying for him in Mortlock, and some at Brainford, as was perceived this day afterward, and as he confessed unto me. Whereupon I thought good to signify so much unto the Lord Lasky, who meant to come and refresh himself at my house, as he was wont before. Oh yeah, the nobles visit a poor man's, just live in a poor man's house for a few days or something to retreat, as you could say. No, this is proof that D had some money, comparatively. Either this day, or within 2 or 3 days after, who also delighted in Edward Kelly, his company, and so on. Hereupon, about the time of Edward Kelly, his rising, I wrote these lines, intending to send them presently to Lord Lasky, that word might be returned of his intent before Edward Kelly should ride. I meaning and hoping to persuade Edward Kelly to tarry so long, and upon such respect. And we have July 4th, 1563, which is, so from 20 years prior. Noblissim princeps in reddito nostrum Edwardum inveni faci quidem lata, sed itineri tamen ut dicit quinq dierum se accingentem hac matutino tempor abitum vel iter istud ingrede malitur rever suras ut estermat post quinq dis quid sit ipsa veritas navit ille que verus eo omnipotens Deus est noster hoc value isto mane sumo vobis significer ut quid factu optimum sit cogitetis del aliis suo tempor vastra calcitudines. Is that fidelissimus, or is it, yeah, fidelissimus Clentulus. Joannes D. Lovely Tumblr here. Okay. Mention of evil spirits, 50-pound yearly stipend. Edward Kelly, his wife. Soul. SOW L-E. Yeah, I guess that's a way to say soul, but this letter now being written and not yet folded up, my friend Edward Kelly was ready, and oh, do they mean 1583? He was ready and came out of his chamber into my study, and I told him that I was even now sending word to the Prince Lasky of his riding out and return after 5 days, and so showed him the letter. Who, when he came to the phrase, quid sit ipsa veritas, he was somewhat offended, saying, "What secret meaning hath this upon some of your two former conference?" Truly, said I, even such as the circumference of the letter doth import, that is, whereas you said that you intended to return within 5 days, or at the same day's end, it is certain whether you will or shall return later or sooner, and therefore quid sit ipso veritas of your return, or intent to return, only God doth know. He would by no means admit that my sincere exposition, but seemed suspicious of some other undue constrictions of those former words. Thereupon I took the letter and tore it in 3 pieces and sent none, but in my mind referred all to God, his disposition, assuring myself of God, his most constant proceeding in his own affairs. Shortly after said Edward Kelly to me, "Certainly here is a spiritual creature in my right shoulder, who sensibly saith to me, Come away." So, said I, did one say to Saul, or is it Saul, when they would have had him away to have drowned him, for whom I stayed in the study by force? And so hindered the devil of his purpose then, as appeared by that unhappy man yet alive. Nay, said Edward Kelly, they have told me that if I tarry here, I shall be hanged, and if I go with this prince, he will cut off my head, and that you mean not to keep promise with me, and therefore, if I might have £1,000 to tarry, yea, a kingdom, I cannot. Therefore I release you of your promise of £50 yearly stipend to me, and you need not doubt but God will defend you and prosper you, and can of the very stones raise up children to Abraham. And again, I cannot abide my wife. I love her not, nay, I abhor her, and there in the house I am misliked, because I favor her no better. To these such as words, spoken in great pangs and disquietness of mind, I reposed and said that these his doings and sayings were not of God, and that by my whole proceeding he might perceive what confidence I reposed in his dealing with the spiritual, our friend, seeing even to the utmost penny, more than my ability, served unto conveniently, and I laid out still about the meaning of such things. Timing, there's some dots, so the beginning of that word's missing, or smudged or something, as were by me to be done, and so on. While on the sudden down he went upon his mirror and away toward Brainford. After a while, whose going my wife came up into my study, and I said, "Jane, this man is marvelously out of quiet against his wife, for her friends, their bitter reports against him behind his back, and her silence thereat, and so on. He is gone, said I, but I beseech Almighty God to guide him and defend him from danger and shame. I doubt not, but God will be merciful to him, and bring him at length to such order, as he shall be faithful servant unto God, and so on. Talking about Edward Kelly there. Note, within 3 hours after, came Edward Kelly up to my study. Stairs unbooted, for he was some in a boat from Brainford. When I saw him, I was very glad inwardly, but I remained writing of those records as I had yet to write of Tuesday's last actions. I've lent my mare out, said he, and so am returned. It is well done, said I, and thereupon he sat down at the chair by my table, where he was wont to sit, and it was 10 of the clock then. He took up in his hand the books which I had brought from London of the Lord Lasky, written to him in his commendations and so on. And as he was looking earnestly on them, a spiritual creature did put the book on the outside of the parchment cover divers times, and once would have taken it out of his hands. Divers times I heard the strokes of myself. At length he said, I see here the handsome maiden Madimi, and have done a pretty while. Then said I to him, Why told you me no sooner? Thereupon I took paper purposely to note what should seem noteworthy, as follows. D said, Mistress Madimi, you are welcome in God, for good, as I hope. What is the cause of your coming now? Madimi said, to see how you do. D said, I know you see me often, and I see you only by faith and imagination. Madimi, pointing to Edward Kelly. I don't know how the pointing went, but that sight is perfecter than his. D said, O Madimi, shall I have any more of these grievous pangs? Madimi said, Cursed wives and great devils are sore companions. D said, in respect of the Lord Treasurer, Mr. Secretary, and Mr. Rowley, I pray you, what worldly comfort is there to be looked for, besides that I do principally put my trust in God? Madimi said, Matter will stain, wicked men will offend, and are easy to be offended. D said, and being offended, will do wickedly to the persecution of them that mean simply. Madimi said, or else they were not to be called wicked. D said, as concerning Albert Lasky, his pedigree, you said your sister would tell all. Madimi said, I told you more than all your dog painters and cat painters can do. D said, you spoke of William Lasky and Sir Richard Lasky, his brother, of which William going into France and then into Denmark, and his marriage into Poland, came this Albert Lasky, now Paladine of Saradia, and so on. Madimi said, those were too pretty men for me to meddle withal. When you set yourselves together and agree together, I will make all agree together. Edward Kelly says, will you, Madimi, lend me £100 for a fortnight? Madimi said, I have swept all my money out of doors. D said, as for money, we shall have that which is necessary when God seeth time. Madimi said, hear me what I say. God is the unity of all things. Love is the unity of every congregation. I mean true and perfect love. The world was made in the love of the Father. You were redeemed in the love of the Father and the Son. The Spirit of God is yet the love of his church. Yet I say, for after it doth triumph, it is not called a church, nor a congregation. So not a, what is it, Kyriakos, not a ecclesia, but a fruitful inheritance and a perfect body in Christ. Take the love of the Father from the world, and it perisheth. Take the love of our redemption away, and we are dead. I will not offend, put your instead of our. Take the light of the Holy Ghost, which is the love of the Father and the Son from the church, and it withereth. Even so, take love from amongst you, and you are members of the devil. Therefore it is said unto you, Dirigite ad invicem, for love is the Spirit of God uniting and knitting things together in laudable proportions. What dost thou bunt after? Speak, man. What dost thou bunt after? This was said to Edward Kelly upon some secret judgment. Madimi and him, and these, side note, we used to call it Ecclesia Triumphant. Note, the angels were not redeemed. Okay. Edward Kelly said he hunts after nothing. And one of the things is that Abraxas, Barbalo, Abramento don't have to be thought of as different personages, different entities. They can be thought of as names of the same. So some of the Gnostics understood that you don't have to go into the Trinity thing. You have names of God, or but anyways, the love of God breedeth faith. Faith. This is Madimi speaking again. The love of God breedeth faith. Faith bringeth forth on one side hope, and on the other side the works of charity. And if we're referring to the Greek agape, we're going to say like good manners is probably a way to say that. In Arabic you have adab and ikram and sort of things. Dost thou love God? Seekest thou to be among his elect? Why dost thou not, therefore, love those things that are of God? Herein thou showest the want of faith. Herein are thy bragging words confounded. For thou sayest, no man can accuse thee of evil, but thou hast no faith, because thou hast no hope. Wilt thou say that thou hast saith? Shew it were by thy love. Whosoever therefore loveth not God is accursed. Thou lovest not God. Lo, behold, thou breakest off his commandments. Oughtest thou not to love him, and hast thou not faith through love in God? Truly thou oughtest so to do. Wilt thou let me see thy hope on his side? Let thy works stand on the other side, and shew thyself to have faith, that therein thou mayest love God, and be beloved of him. If thou hast none of these, thou hast hate. If thou hate God, the reward thereof is great, but the greatness is unquenchable fire. Whosoever followeth not commandments hateth God. Well, it's not as black and white as that, but if sin be the breach of the commandments, and so on. Dost thou love silver and gold? The one is a thief, the other is a murderer. Wilt thou seek honor? Well, there's a parable that Christians don't mention about Jesus and the gold, and the end line or something is like Jesus tells the people, gold kills people. Well, it wasn't really gold, but the love of the gold. But anyways, I've shared that elsewhere. Edward Kelly said no, and Madimi said, so did Cain. But thou hast a just God that loveth thee, just and virtuous men that delight in thee. Therefore be thou virtuous, for thou shalt tread the world under thy feet. I promise thee, I've driven the scullen drob out of our kitchen long ago. He said, do you mean worldly covetousness? Madimi said, yea, and the first heavenly covetousness. Karma Geta Barman. Is that Karma Gita Barman? And next to that, note this came to pass anno 1589, the Vulgar era, when he was made Baron of Bohemia in 1590. Okay. And Dee asked, I beseech you, what is that to say? Madimi said, Veni ex illo Barma. Edward Kelly says, felt and saw a spiritual creature go out of his right thigh. The presences of spiritual experiences can be quite unique. Madimi says, where are thy 14 companions? Barman said, they dwell here. Dee said, he that was come out seemed a great handsome man, with a satchel of a dog's skin by his side, and a cap on his head, and so on. You hear in some of the magic books about, some of the forbidden magic books, you could say, the Seher books, that people wore skins of dogs and other unclean beasts as part of their shamanism, or whatever people are going to call it. Dee said, oh, the hand of the highest hath wrought this. Madimi said, venit tenebra fugit spirito mio. Edward Kelly says, here appear 14 of diverse, evil-favored shapes. Some are like monkeys, some like dogs, some very hairy, monstrous men. They seem to scratch each other by the face. These seem to go about Madimi and say, Gilde pragma cures helek. Is it Gil di pragma cavris helik? I'm presuming that's another Enochian saying. What is that to say? Madimi said, Valimus hic in nostris habiter. He said, Qua sunt illa vestra. Edward Kelly says, one of them said, Habemus hominem istem demicilium nostrum. And I guess that's where we're going to leave off. I'm going to include this with the next reference here. But Karma Gita, but a lot of the demons take on shapes that are like grotesque or something,